Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, everyone. If you're a regular listener of the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast, you know I'm in the middle of a Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision 30-part series, and that hasn't changed. I'm just squeezing 4 special episodes in between my regularly Friday morning releases. So I had the opportunity to interview my friend and blue-collar brother, Daniel Ross, who's quickly invading the personality profiling space and truly authentic individual with an amazing personal story. And so had the opportunity to do a 3-part interview with him. And then actually we did a bonus. So there's 4 parts coming. And so you're listening to one of those episodes today. I hope you enjoy it. And we'll pick back up with episode 118 at its regularly scheduled release time on Friday morning. And so you're not going to miss anything. I'm just adding in some extra for you. I hope you learned something from Daniel. And if you do, reach out to him. He'd love to talk to you. Have a great day. Hey, everyone. This is Mack Story. Got my awesome blue-collar brother, Daniel Ross, with me today. And we're going to be talking about profiling. And that's his specialty, not mine. So welcome to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast, Mr. Daniel.
Thank you, Mack, for having me.
You're my first guest I've ever had.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so I may not ever have another.
So I'm the experiment.
Maybe so. But I want to introduce you to my audience because I think what you do is pretty cool, especially with the blue collar background. So tell the blue collar leadership group a little bit about yourself.
Man,
whatever you want them to do.
Yeah, I'll do it. Well, first, what's blue collar? What's that mean?
You know all about it, don't you?
Yeah,
I've seen you on Facebook. You make some stuff happen.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. Well, to tell you the truth, you want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah, man.
The whole truth?
I got to say something. I can't nod. Yeah.
I talk about, I'm getting into different spaces right now, and my influence has been growing in this field. And just recently, I was on a show, and they had asked me what was in front of my name. Was it a doctor?
Oh, yeah, that was funny.
It was funny. I almost lost it, because it's so far from that. And to really tell you a little bit about what I do, I have to kind of back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about my story.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
stories are powerful.
Yes, and when I lead out without telling my story, I've done this before. I feel like I'm I feel like I'm masking myself, and so it's really, it really feels inauthentic. Or non, is that a right word?
It's fine. It's fine.
Can we use that here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
Well, I grew up in Mississippi. So.
You got to understand, these people have been listening to me talk or trying to.
So you grew up in Tallahassee. You're Tallahassee, Alabama. I was Rankin County, Mississippi.
Okay.
So my story, just kind of give you a little bit of a background, and it's going to give you a little bit of a bird's eye view of once we start getting into what I do. My background is my highest grade in school was 4th grade.
Nobody would ever guess. People are guessing you're a doctor, right?
Yes.
Right? That's what happened.
Exactly. Yeah, they asked me if it was a doctor in front of my name, and that's why I almost just made a scene, just like blurted out, almost like lost it.
You wanted to let it out.
I did.
Right.
Well, no, I like almost just like had one of those spontaneous, weird laughters, just like a blah, but anyway, yeah. So my highest grade in school was 4th grade, from Mississippi. We call it Mississippi. Some people say Mississippi.
Okay,
it's Mississippi.
All right. I like that. Shorten it up a little.
It does. Yeah,
speeds up the process.
Exactly. It's all about the speed. It's about production results. You don't want to take a lot of time. Talking.
Just get it out.
So highest grade in school, 4th grade. I had passed. I'd actually passed 4th grade in public school, and had changed schools at that summer. But I wasn't reading and writing. I mean, I could understand some words, but to put a sentence together and understand a sentence was just basically impossible for me. So new school did an actual placement test, and they had tested me at second grade level.
Yeah.
Which, I'm the age of a fifth grader, right? And
Literally, you were the age of a fifth grader.
I should be in, that was my age range. I should be in fifth grade. And so when I was tested at second grade, the new school that's where you go. And so I went to second grade. And
But you had finished fourth grade.
I had finished fourth grade.
You got tested while you were about to be in the fifth grade, but they
Yes.
moved you back to the second grade.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And when I had passed that, it was a public system. And so, I guess, they didn't at that time, and just
That's the way it was.
the way it was, you passed, right? So new school, second grade, go to, classroom with smaller kids. And it took me, I believe I was age 11, 10 or 11. I might have been 11, but age 11 to age 16 to go from second grade to fourth grade.
Wow.
So I'm 16 years old. Imagine that. I mean, if any of you guys have any imagination, imagine yourself 16 years old in a fourth grade class and not able to do the work. You're not, without maybe cheating on a test occasionally.
Kind of like you kept aging, but you kind of stalled out
Yes.
as far as your academic.
Yeah, it just didn't register. I mean, I didn't get, the comprehension wasn't there. And so when you can't, when comprehension's not there and you see a teacher in the front of the room trying to explain something and they're just saying words and you're not getting the comprehension of it, audio and written. And so I'm going to jump forward just a little bit and we can kind of bounce around.
In school, we're talking about way back in the old days in the 1900s, right?
Yeah, this is
you
way back.
Old like me.
Yeah, I was, I heard somebody comment yesterday about you and your age. I won't say who it was.
So we're about the same though, right? I'm about to be 50. You about to be 49.
Dude, you're way older than me, man.
At least a year almost.
Yeah, you're about a year older, so you're my elder.
But you come a long way from that past.
I did.
So we're going to talk about it. That's your foundation that you built everything on. But you say you're about to jump forward.
Yeah. So 16 years old in fourth grade, I was a runaway. I was constantly running away from home. From around age 10 to 16. I was running away multiple times per year, 10, 15 times, maybe 20 times per year. These little short stays of, one-nighters, in the woods. I would find car doors that were unlocked. I would sleep in cars. I'd find garages, neighbors,
wow,
just all kind of crazy. I had ran away once to a park, but 5 to 8 miles away, at age 11, 12. Slept in the toy, little toy rocket ship that you could climb in, the aluminum structure.
Yeah.
I don't know if they make these anymore, but it's an aluminum structure. 30-foot rocket ship in Jackson, Mississippi. And I remember making it to that park and sleeping in that aluminum structure. At that age, I wasn't thinking I didn't plan very well. I don't know if I plan much better now these days, but maybe a little bit better. But I didn't pack adequately. And I remember, I could read the sign across the street that the bank had, where, how these banks back in the day would show the temperature. They were just for, I guess, something good for the community, show you how the temperature. And I remember seeing 42 degrees and me not packing adequately. Cool. And just being on that aluminum structure and just freezing and
beyond cool.
Yes. And as a kid, I remember seeing this park it was a really cool park during the day, but I didn't know until, later that it was actually really not so good place, in Jackson. And so there were, activity in the middle of the night that was, pretty scary for a, 11-year-old boy. And so anyway, fast forward a little bit, I quit. I finally quit. Started working, jobs at 16 years old. I mean, I was working prior to that, part-time stuff, but I went full-time.
So you quit school around 16.
At
You
16,
still only had passed through the fourth grade level.
Well, I didn't even, in that new school, I didn't even get past fourth grade. I was still trying to do fourth grade work.
So you give up on all that.
I gave up on it.
Go find another way to make it.
Yes. And so one of my first jobs was, I've done so many things, and you'll hear this on broadcast just to kind of clarify as I tell these stories. I'm in the project right now of writing a book. I have someone working with me writing this book, and I had to do an exercise to go back and count my jobs, and so it took me quite a while. And up to date, I've had about 75 jobs in my life. 75 either jobs or ventures that I've had. Whether it was cutting grass or,
most of those blue collar jobs.
Blue collar jobs, yes.
Most of them, or all of them.
All of them. 75. I mean, who does this, right?
You did a lot of stuff.
Yes, I did. And so one of my first jobs, I don't know if it was the actual first job, but one of the first jobs was I was a water boy in a plant farm.
Okay.
And I watered. We had this plant farm had really large greenhouses, and all of them were manual. All the plants had to be watered manually. We didn't have automatic systems, and so it was two young men, me and another guy, and we start early in the morning and had to go through and water these plants, and man, those greenhouses get hot. They get so hot. So 75 jobs, and we can bounce around. If you have any questions on any of those, we can dive into any of those. But at age 30, I read my first book, and it wasn't because I just decided to. I would attempt reading books all prior to that. I had an interest. I wanted to learn. I wanted to read, but reading was so difficult, and didn't know why. But I just considered I was dumb, and
that's what you thought.
That's
Maybe
what I thought.
People might have told you that. Basically,
I don't know if anybody actually really told me that. It might have been
kids back in the.
I don't remember.
I
don't remember that, but I remember what I told myself. I labeled myself because of the outcome, right? And I'm sure other people probably thought it. But so I read my first book at age 30.
But you were smart. You were doing all kinds of jobs.
Oh my goodness!
You had intelligence.
Oh yeah.
You just didn't learn it from a book.
Yeah, hands-on. I could, at 11 years old, I could tear an engine apart and rebuild a lawnmower engine and get it going.
Dumb people don't do that.
Yeah, I would go and ask a neighbor. I would see a lawnmower in a neighbor's trash on the street, ready for pickup, right? And I would go and I knock on the door and I'd ask the neighbor if I could have that lawnmower. And I would tear it apart, and I just figured out real quick that it needed fire, it needed a spark plug, it needed fuel, it needed air, the inside needed, it needed lubricant, and figured all those things out and try to figure out what was wrong with it based on those, tearing it apart and cleaning it up and put it back together and get that bad boy running.
Yeah.
So I could do a lot of hands-on things. I just was good at that. It just came second nature.
You could learn. You actually could learn really easy. Sounds like you just couldn't learn from a book.
Exactly. Cannot learn from a book.
Actually, you couldn't comprehend the book.
No.
That's why you didn't read the book.
So I would read into my 20s, into my late 20s. So when I told you I read my first book, and it wasn't because I just decided to one day. So prior to that, all those years prior to 30, and I'm going to give you an example. And I'm going to give you an example of like when I'm even at 30 years old and would read a sentence 10 times. I could get words down, simple words, pretty common words, but anything, larger words were more difficult to pronounce if it was a 3-syllable word. But a common sentence with simple words in it, it would take me, for example, I would read that sentence 10 times and not get that comprehension of it. I would push through with a lot of frustration. And for example, the 11th time I would read this sentence, all of a sudden I would understand it.
It kind of clicked.
But I would realize I had 2 words turned around and out of place, or there was a word that I missed, and I took 10 times, read the sentence 10 times, and I would miss a word like of, or if, or, you know, and I would miss this. And when you take that out of the sentence and you're reading this thing, it's not going to make sense.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I see it. And so I'd have to go through, you know, I would start reading a forward of a book, and I'd get so tired and actually would get headaches from trying to read. I would give up. So 30 years old, I read my first book, and 2 years later, I read another book. Another 2 years or after that, I had found out about a conference on.
Were those specific types of books, or they just
random, just something I saw something, had an interest in it, and at 35 years old, I went to a conference on people skills.
Okay, how'd you end up at that?
Somebody had recommended. A friend of mine had mentioned it to me, and I just had an interest in. You know, let's go check this out.
Okay,
that's a short version. I can give you a long version later.
Yeah,
but and so I went to Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'd never been there. Flew there. Went to this conference. It was a 3-day conference, and for whatever reason, you know, sitting in a conference with 1,000 to 1,500 people, it's like my brain turned on, and I cannot explain it. But when they talked, a light bulb came on, and when they talked about people skills, and in a section of this this weekend seminar, they go through and explain profile. And
profile, I mean, like personality, why we do what we do.
Yes.
And how we think about stuff, see stuff, perception, all that.
Yes, and they broke down the 4 basics, you know, and you know, and that's what we're going to talk about more in the show. But again, for some reason, my brain turned on, and I ate it up. And anytime I had any extra money, or even when I didn't have extra money, after that, I would always find a way. And I'm still struggling as a blue collar.
You're struggling just in life,
I'm financially, in many ways. And sometimes I would spend I would empty my bank account to get to another city.
You got attached to this.
I got attached. So I traveled the country, and I you know, I don't know, I might have spent probably $40,000.
Wow.
In a 6-year, you know, 6 to 8 year period traveling to seminars.
I call that hungry, Daniel.
It was hungry. You want me to tell you how hungry it was? I went to Virginia Beach, Virginia to, is it Regents University? I believe in Virginia Beach, and they have a hotel there. And this one conference was going to be there. And I had enough money for the flight. I had enough money for the conference fee, and I showed up, and I slept in the lobby, and I went without food for the entire weekend, just so I could be around people that were growing and learning.
So let me just tell the audience who's listening, we get into the meat of why Daniel is my first guest on this show, because of, I mean, his story and where he come from and his hunger for growth and development. That's why I do what I do with this podcast. You know that, Daniel, but I'm trying to help people become hungry. I want to be that spark like you saw in that first conference, whether I'm speaking on stage or in my books. And that's why you're on the show, because I know anybody who's listening, they're learning about you, but the next 2 segments we're going to do, they're going to learn about what you learned from that. But what's awesome is there ain't no doubt you're going to spark somebody in my audience to go to the next level and beyond. And that's why both of us do what we do. And I'm very passionate about the blue collar space. So just right quick at this moment, just to thank you for taking this time to invest in my tribe, if you want to call it that. Hopefully it'll help you grow yours.
Yes, thank you.
So if you slept there that night, you were so hungry, and you didn't need somebody else to feed you. You say, I'm going to feed me.
Yes.
Not literally.
Yes.
But mentally.
Right. And so that wasn't the only time, you know, so I've done that, I don't know, between 20 and 30, I haven't counted the trips I've taken in the conference, but between 20 and 30 across the U.S. And there were times I slept in my truck, you I would be.
So that was at age 35. So you've been into this personal growth journey relative to this type stuff.
Yes.
For about 15 years.
That's right. That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. Yes. When you go sleep on a bench and don't eat for 2 days, you're being very intentional about your growth.
Yes. And also, but trying to not have I don't want to look that part. So if I'm sleeping in a parking garage in my truck and I go into the restroom, I'll carry my backpack and I'll clean up.
Yeah.
So I say clean, or, now, fitness center is relatively cheap. And so you have like a membership of a national chain.
Yeah.
And so that's a very smart move. So you can always get a shower.
Okay. Good stuff.
So I would show up to these conferences and no one, most people would have never known, that I wasn't, that I had been sleeping in the truck, for the conference.
Yeah. So were you going to all kinds of conferences? By the way, in this episode, we got about 5 minutes left, and then we'll do a part 2 and a part 3 when we dig into the stuff.
Uh-huh.
But were they all the same types of conferences? Or
most of them were, and I've ventured into a few different ones, but most of them were kind of the same.
Related to that profiling that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, and that was just one section of what they do in that conference.
So relative to what we're going to talk about the next sessions in the profiling, why should anybody who's listening now make sure they listen to part 2 and 3? What's the benefit of somebody to learn this who's never even heard of it? We ain't talking about like FBI profile kind of stuff.
Right.
We're talking about what kind of stuff.
Well, we're gonna talk about honoring people in a whole new way. And when you honor your fellow human, your fellow employee, your family member, in this very specific skill set, it's going to take blinders off your eyes and help you see them in a whole new way. And what it's going to do is it's going to cause you to gain influence.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot.
In your family, in your home, and in your community, and in a way that's almost like magical.
When people have more influence, does their life get better or worse, you think?
Oh, it gets better.
Ain't no doubt about it, right?
So, yes, no doubt.
And so you're going to help them see. You're probably going to help them look in the mirror and out the window, right?
Yes.
It's a little bit of both.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna do, and I've started a group, and this is kind of how I started getting elevated with, my first groups I started doing and teaching this, I called it Discovering You.
Okay, that's cool.
So the foundation, it's hard to grow in influence when you don't know yourself first.
Start with self.
So when you start with self, and then you're able to take your blinders off to those around you in a whole nother way.
Yeah, man.
It's going to blow your mind.
That's cool stuff. And that's another reason you're on the show, because everything that you're going to talk about fits right into what I talk about. It's just a different way of seeing things. It's all about leading yourself well in a way to serve other people and to help other people excel.
Exactly.
And everybody wins.
Yes.
And your life's only going to get better personally and professionally, right?
Yes.
So it's going to be pretty cool. And I saw Daniel, he was interviewed by 2 ladies is on a Facebook page, is Between 2 Amy's.
Yes.
Is the name of their Facebook page. And there's a video that I watched recently of Daniel between 2 Amy's. and they were hammering him back and forth, but it got pretty deep, but it was awesome.
Yes.
And when I saw Daniel on that show, I was like, man, I need to get him on the podcast so he can talk about some of that stuff. And you're just venturing out into this, like, you've been doing it for a few years, but you're starting to monetize it now and kind of become.
Yes. Well, I started doing this just out of a passion, and it got to the point where 50% of my week, if not more, was doing this non-monetized because I love it so much. And it got to the point where I'm struggling. I was struggling because I don't want to do the other thing I was doing. And so
even though you're good at it, you can do it. You don't want to do it.
So this got to be so ridiculous. And then it kind of started evolving from that passion. And so, yeah.
You fired up?
I'm fired up. I'm ready. I'm ready for you guys to see something that you see people in a whole new way, see yourself in a whole new way. And I'm excited about your life and where you're going to go only if you're hungry enough.
You got to be hungry.
You got to be hungry.
Les Brown talked about that.
He does.
You heard Les.
I have heard Les.
Yeah. So you got to be hungry. And I'm telling you, if there's people listening to this podcast, they're hungry, especially if they've been listening to it a lot. And I know I've got a lot of listeners, and again, it's a privilege to share you with them. And if they're looking for you, how can they find you or get in touch with you if they just want to talk to you, maybe learn more about your story?
Well, I've got it's a funny story, but I won't tell it. Well, maybe we'll tell it later about my website, but it is DanielRossCoaching.com.
Daniel Ross, ROSS, coaching.com.
Yes.
It's got your contact information or some way to get in touch with you.
Yes. So actually, I have an application process on there for anybody who's wanting to go to their next level. You want to fill out the application and we kind of review that.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, but you ain't got to do it. But I do it all the time.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do it now.
Okay.
You're welcome to share your cell phone number if you want somebody to call you.
Okay.
Is that something you'd share?
Oh, I totally would.
Okay.
I'm totally
what is that right quick?
334-590-0503.
One more time.
334-590-0503.
And so I always share my number. Some people say, man, I can't believe you share your number out there. And why do I do that? Because I actually want people to call me.
Exactly.
I want to help people. They want to be helped.
Yeah. And going back into the, you see a lot, because it's high touch, right? It's high touch. And that's what this is about, is high touch. And there's a lot of systems out there and there's a lot of coaching out there, but it's so digital, you don't have that personal touch anymore. And I think we really grow with that personal touch.
Absolutely. People call you, they're going to get to talk to you, right?
They're going to get to talk to me.
And they call me, they're going to get to talk to me.
And if you can't,
for me to call back.
And if you can't get me, send a text, because I do get a lot of calls, but I still manage it. And if you slip through the cracks, just keep.
You ain't too old to text.
No,
you know about text.
I learned. That's how I learned to write. Is when texting came out.
I
did not write prior to that, and so I had to start texting on the old phone, the old flip phone.
Yeah. Oh, that was a hard way.
It was a hard way.
You got to hit a number 50,000 times and then move to the
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, man. So we're gonna wrap up part 1 of 3 today with Daniel Ross, and then we'll be back tomorrow with part 2. And followed by the next day with part 3, where we'll kind of dive into what this profiling is. Gonna have some fun, right?
All right,
man.
Sounds good.
Talk to you guys later. Have a great day.
Make it happen, or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.